I'm just going to set this up to stream. There we are. I'm just going to set this up to stream.
I just got notified.
I got to find my little spiel. Okay, you ready, Jim?
Yes.
This meeting of the Glens Falls Police Reform and Reinvention Committee is a virtual meeting as authorized by New York Executive Order 202.1. The public is participating with this Zoom meeting by watching it live on YouTube. So the meeting has been advertised on the city's website and notice of which has been posted. This live Zoom meeting is being recorded and will be made available shortly after ending on the City of Glens Falls YouTube page, which is available at www.youtube.com and searching for the City of Glens Falls. And as I mentioned just a moment ago, it is also being live streamed at the same time. So if you wish to participate by making a statement or asking a question, please wait until the moderator opens the meeting for public comments. You should raise your hand until you receive a text stating that you'll be called upon in the order in which you have signaled the meeting administrator. So with that, let us begin. Jim?
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this second attempt at having a public forum regarding the police reform proposal. It's been out in the public for a couple weeks now. We've had a survey done. We've had responses to that. We continue to encourage public participation and sending emails and communicating with us in the various ways that the public can regarding this proposal, all the way, up till we approve it, the council approves it, and beyond. Again, we've had this discussion that this is a living document, and things will change on this as we accomplish them. Others will come on as issues arise, and so this document's a living document. So we'll continue to encourage people to reach out to the city in the months, years ahead. And again, I appreciate the committee members' efforts through this process. You guys have done, most of you have done double duty, so I again appreciate that your willingness to work with the city to come up with this proposal to present to the governor's office before April 1st. I want to also thank the Glens Falls Police Department for quickly taking action after our last meeting and investigating what happened, and the other agencies that are becoming involved in that process as well. So hopefully we'll have some answers to what happened, and some people be held accountable for that. And again, I appreciate all the committee's patience and understanding the last time, and I apologize again for what happened, and thank you for sticking with us. We're doing this a little differently based on our last meeting, where we're privately meeting on Zoom, but it's live streaming on our YouTube channel. So if there are any individuals that have looked over the proposal and have any questions or comments, they can certainly ask them at this time, or I would like to just go through each section and just make sure we're good with this. And if anyone has anything with the public, we can certainly have that discussion at this time. But, I again appreciate the efforts that you all have put forward and moving forward as we accomplish these goals. So thank you. Any committee members have anything to say at this time? All right.
Jim, we could barely hear you. You're going in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
All right. I'll get closer. You'll just probably see my forehead and glasses. But so is there any comments or anything any of the committee members want to say first? Peter, is there any comments?
There's no comments right now.
All right, so let's just quickly, we can go through the proposal and just make sure we're all on the same page with these things. So the first topic is of this reform and reinvention is community engagement and outreach and transparency. We had a lot of discussion about different ways for the police department to outreach to the public through various means, through ward meetings, through establishing a community liaison officer, to engaging with other community organizations. We talked about transparency, where the police department is going to be sharing more information to the public. And, Joe, if you want to, or Chief, if you want to just say where we're at with that, because we've already started doing some of this stuff. And I think it's important that the public should know that.
Yeah, just kind of I put out a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago now, a memo or a letter of interest, an email to the officers for the community liaison officer position, seeking interest and trying to identify somebody that we can actually have get started in that role from our current officer pool. We've received 2 officers that were interested in that position. And so the assistant chief and I are going to be meeting with those 2 individuals over the coming week or so to select one of those 2 officers. And then we're going to start moving forward with having them sit with us and develop a plan going forward as far as formalizing a role and utilizing that officer in that position.
Great, thank you. We've also been working on quite a bit on our social media aspect and standpoint, and the chief has been diligent in working in that regards, keeping that up. That was one of the things that was discussed by the committee, and we'll continue to do that as well. We talked about one of the other points that we brought up in this proposal is education and training of the officers from Chief, help me out here, from reality-based training to crisis intervention training. There's a bunch that we've talked about. And
it's something that we're going to continue to make it's going to be something that we're going to continue to make a priority. I was just talking with Detective Sergeant Chico today. We're going to be, hopefully COVID is going to be, obviously the numbers are dropping. A significant portion of our officers have been vaccinated. So we're going to hopefully be able to get back to some of our more in-person type stuff. And we're going to kind of sit down and start. Our goal last year was to have all of our officers trained in the concept of principled policing. Because of COVID, that was not unable to be completed. So we're going to start discussing how we're going to start rolling that out and getting all of our officers trained in that concept. About 2 weeks ago, I signed us up for a nationally recognized and accredited training to be able to enhance our training and have our officers have more varied and better quality training we're starting to roll that out and identify some areas where we can focus, and obviously that were discussed during the course of the committee. So those are all things that we've actually already started to do. I am exploring some ideas into allowing our officers to do the scenario-based, reality-based training. That tends to be a very expensive process, but I'm exploring some other avenues where we can potentially save costs and get good quality training. So those are all things that we're looking at. It's about basically enhancing our officers, giving them the tools that they need to go out and do their job.
Thank you. Diana?
Yeah, I had forwarded an email from the Adirondack Diversity Initiative. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. But I think they're offering to underwrite some training if you jump in early for the first 60 participants.
Yeah, I did see. I have not had a chance to do that. They apparently are going to be doing something through a group, and I have not had an opportunity to look and see exactly what it is that they offer. I haven't had a chance to look at that yet. But
Okay. It might be just a free resource if we can get in on time.
Diana, was it specific training or just any type of?
It says to all law enforcement and local government officials, as part of our community wellness program, Adirondack Diversity Initiative offers to provide a consulting and training resource for police agencies in the Adirondack North Country. They can assist agencies to incorporate and schedule a consulting and training commitment into their police reform and reinvention plan. And they will work with agencies to meet the requirement, understanding that budgetary constraint may impede your ability to fully engage. They have secured funding to underwrite the cost of the 2021 cohort, but it's limited to the first 60 participants. So I'm not sure any more than that.
Okay, great, thanks. Peter, any questions? Any comments?
Nothing from the public so far.
Okay, thank you. The next one, and the last bullet point in this was an annual review and assessment of the training program. So we thought that was an important component to make sure that we're reaching the needs of the community, and if we have to adjust, if the chief and the department has to adjust, that can happen. We talked about recruiting and retention of our officers. This was a big topic, recruiting people of color, of different ethnic backgrounds, and in various types of individuals to serve on our police force. And we talked about ways to do that through collaboration with the local colleges, from Plattsburgh to SUNY Adirondack, to Empire State College. We also talked about creating recruitment materials as well, and doing outreach to areas that we haven't done outreach before. We also talked about tightening our look at who we're looking to hire within the city, or somebody, Chief, you can help me with this, trying to find more local individuals.
The intent moving forward is to have a Glens Falls City preference for civil service on our next go around. So obviously, if we're drawing and we're hiring, we're getting good qualified candidates from the city of Glens Falls, the likelihood of them sticking around and being invested in the community is greater if they're from Glens Falls, as opposed to somebody who's not. Right now, based on civil service law, anybody that's in an adjoining county can actually take our civil service test. So it could very well be that we're locked into hiring. If it so happens to be Southern Saratoga County, it could very well be that the candidates that we have to choose from based on the scores are from a 45, 50-minute ride and have no ties to our community. they might be good cops, they might end up doing a good job for us, but they don't have any ties and they don't have any feel for our community. Whereas if we have that city preference list, obviously we're drawing from the city first. So I've already been in communication with civil service. It doesn't look like we still have a list from our last test that we've taken. It doesn't look like we're going to be giving a test score on. It looks like our probably next testing opportunity will be early 22, is by the sounds of it. So obviously, as we get closer to that date, you know, some of the things that we had talked about is making sure that people in the community are aware of our test, and that we hopefully have a better draw from everybody that has an interest or a desire. They'll know when the test is. They'll know how they have to apply for the test and where to go and that sort of thing. So, and then we draw from our local pool of candidates, and hopefully we get some real good officers that way that have a vested interest in the community.
Great, thanks, Chief. Is there anybody have, Peter, any comments or anything, questions in this section?
Okay, I got it.
Not at this time. There is nothing.
All right,
We
Lee.
are going to gain more participant. Mike Seidel is going to be signing on shortly.
Okay. Lee.
No, I just wanted to mention that we also talked about getting an early start with recruitment, with working with the local schools and with our resource officers, and you know, just getting as a youth, get them involved at an early age and seeing what policing is all about. And that was a way to start an early recruitment process with people of color in the community.
Yeah, I think that was the intent. That's one of the things we're going to be looking for, that person that we identify as our community liaison officer. It's going to be kind of building some of these things from the ground up, because obviously we haven't done it in the past. So looking to do that community outreach to formalize some of these programs and to help facilitate that interest and that desire. It's one thing to you know, say, okay, this is when the test date is, but like you said, if this is somebody that's developed a relationship with certain people in the community, they might want to aspire to be like our CLO or, you know, other individuals on the force. So yeah, that's going to be a whole program that we're going to have to be working, but that's going to be something that we're going to be kind of leaning on that person that's selected to do that.
So are you going to hire someone, 2 people, or are you selecting from the department?
We're selecting from who we have right now.
Okay.
We've got 2 officers. If it turns out that it's, you know, it becomes more demanding than what we can do in-house, because obviously the expectation is that officer is going to be working the road as well. And if it turns out that there's too much going on for that person to be able to do both tasks, that's where we would go to the city and perhaps say, you know, this is something that the committee's identified. Is there a possibility for us to get additional resources to help us out in that? But at least right now, where we're starting, we're going to see if we can do it in-house.
Great. Thanks, Chief.
You know, and another aspect that can be tied into that too is the work of the SRO in the schools, and the great resource that is, and the positive relationships that that officer has built and will continue to build.
I agree.
Yeah, we've got some great youth organizations as well. Harvest has got a wonderful youth group organization. We've got the youth center. I mean, there's places where we can reach the younger generation, try to bring them up and have them put on a uniform and patrol our community. So we're very fortunate in that regards. The next area we had identified as a topic is complaint policy and civilian oversight. We had some discussion on this, and a lot of it centered around one of the things in the was creating a civilian oversight committee. And the city already has that in our Board of Public Safety. There are individuals that reside in the city that are involved in the hiring, the disciplinary process, and things like that. And they're appointed by the they're appointed by the mayor, and they listened to and meet every month, and they listen to what's going on in the department and if there are any discussions. So that's a great asset to have that we already have, and we're utilizing. And you know, the chief, we walked through the process about people filing grievances, or not grievances, but complaints or concerns with the office, you know, with the officers, and how that process plays out, and what can be done in that regard. So we've highlighted those areas. We've talked about strengthening some of them, and so that's what we're doing in that section of our proposal. Not sure if anyone else has anything to say about that. Chief, do you want to expand on that anymore or not?
I think the only thing that I would say is that one of the things that I'm going to be working on, and it gets back to the first topic as far as the transparency as well. I'm still working through our policies and signing off on all of those policies as part of the switch over from Chief Leiden to myself. It's my responsibility to review all of our policies and sign off and take ownership of them. I'm still working through that, and once I've had the opportunity to do all those policies, it's my intent, all the ones that don't impair our investigations or safety issues, things of that nature, which is going to be the overwhelming majority of them. I intend to have them posted on our website for anybody who has an interest in viewing and reviewing them. And on top of that as well, I intend to give an opportunity for those who do want to file complaints. This wasn't an opportunity previously, but we'll have that opportunity for them to do on our website as well.
Great, thanks, Chief.
I have one other comment, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. This is
we have our own built-in oversight committee. You know, it is built in with the public safety here on a local level. Do we know, coming from the governor's office, after all, it is a governor mandate, will there be an oversight committee, an oversight division in the governor's office to oversee these, to see if all 500 police agencies are doing what they are mandated to do throughout New York State?
My understanding, I'm sorry.
Good question, Lee.
My understanding as far as the reform proposal is that the governor, his intent behind this wasn't to have a one-size-fits-all top-down approach to it. He wanted to give local agencies the opportunity to work with their communities to develop a program that works for them. And so the only issue that's going to potentially be at play is if an agency doesn't turn in a plan. Initially, the only thing, a part of his executive order, was if an agency didn't submit a plan, then they were going to be cut off from funding, and that still is true. My understanding now is that there's actually going to be an oversight personnel assigned to an agency that doesn't do that through the Attorney General's office at the municipality's expense that will monitor that agency in their operations. So I think as long as people are making a good faith effort to put together a plan and have that submitted, that's not going to be something that the governor's intent wasn't behind this. He wanted people to do what we're doing now, and that's having these conversations and identifying areas where we can work together and enhance services and improve. So yeah, my guess is, and again, things are fluid and things can change, but right now my intent is, or my understanding is, that that's not going to be something except for the agencies that don't comply with the executive order.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Thanks, Chief. Peter, any questions, comments?
There are no comments so far.
Okay. Moving on, the next topic of area that we're looking to address is mental health and wellness and addiction. This was a very involved discussion regarding areas of concern in the community regarding mental health, and we ahead of this, they've taken steps to try to address some of the some things with hiring a case. They're going to help me out. I want to say caseworker, but that's not the.
A social worker.
Thank you, social worker, to help in the mental health matters with the police department, trying to, stealing Linda's words, wrap around these individuals to try to get them the help they need outside of the law enforcement component of that. And the council has taken steps to bring somebody on board for that, and we're working diligently to do that. Really want to thank Diana for her efforts in that regard. So thank you very much. It's a big issue. We've talked about the LEAD program, law enforcement assisted diversion. And I don't know if any of the committee members, Rob or anyone, wants to talk about that a little bit. We thought that was a very important area to address. Rob?
Yeah, sure. On the LEAD program, this is a discussion that we've had in a criminal justice and community services task force for a little while. We've met with some representatives from the city of Albany who are currently operating a LEAD program. The city of Glens Falls Police Department seemed very interested in working on a pilot with this. What it is it's an opportunity for diversion at the front line, with the officer, diverting a situation that was a low-level crime related to mental health or addiction issues, and trying to connect the person to treatment. And I think what might be envisioned is that the city social worker would be involved in this program. So we look forward to, we can, our agency has a local planning, oversight and coordination role in the community, and we work with a lot of local agencies, and many of them are very interested in helping to support implementation of this program.
We also talked about Lemurs. Was it Lemurs? Is that how I'm making?
So Lemurs is the law enforcement mental health referral system. It's called mental health, but it also really covers addiction issues. And that's an opportunity where an officer can very quickly fill out just a very brief, it's less than 1 page, information about an individual when they encounter them with a mental health or addiction issue. And that referral goes off as a secure email to our office, and then we'll be working with local providers to arrange for outreach and engagement efforts.
Great, thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. Chiming in, I appreciate that. Any comments on that section? Peter, any questions, anything?
No, nothing so far.
That gets us to the end of our proposal to present. Is there any committee members that want to have anything to bring up? I mean, with this, the next step is that we give this to the Common Council, and it is scheduled for a public hearing on March 9th at our next Common Council meeting. And hopefully at that time we'll be approving it, and the mayor can sign the document that needs to be signed, and we can send it off to the governor. But again, if there's anybody that has anything they want to add or say, throughout this process, and even after it, we're here to listen. And again, this document is a living document. So I don't
just a couple of additional updates. I have been in conversation with the mayor as far as the social work position. I think there's a couple other things that are kind of at play right now, but I think we've been talking about late spring, hopefully putting some things together, because obviously there's job descriptions of civil service. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we have to do administratively before we actually seek to hire somebody. But it would be the hope that late spring we would start to be able to kind of start moving forward as far as identifying those type of things. So that's one thing. The other thing, we're fortunate that we actually have some members at the county level that are on board with all of these kind of things. You know, when you talk about some of these changes and some of these things that we have going on, you want everybody to be kind of pulling in the same direction. We're really fortunate that we have that. We actually had a meeting today up at the sheriff's office. Sheriff LaFar's on board with a lot of these things as well. And myself and some of my staff and Mr. Usi and probation met with some individuals, mediation matters and employment and training. We talked about some of the restorative justice programs and getting some of those programs up and running and getting some people trained to start bringing those practices on a county-wide level, more than just the police component, but in the practice of the Warren County criminal justice system. So those are some steps that we're already taking before we've even, like I said, formalized our plans. I believe the sheriffs, they've submitted their plan. I don't know that they've formalized it yet. Obviously, ours hasn't been formalized yet either, but we're already recognizing that these are some things that the community wants, and we're moving forward on them. So.
Great.
And just to follow up,
I
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, when you said about timeframes, I wonder, are we projecting out any of this whole plan to be done? I know that some things have already started to be done, but you know, is this kind of like, you know, a foreshadow of like a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and just kind of giving the community a perspective of, I know always, you know, evolving, but you know, what should we see in the next couple of years or next couple of months per se?
Yeah, I think just along time frames. I think some things are going to be, you know, some things are going to be easier to do than others. You know, some of these the more involved community type stuff, you know, I envision this summer, you know, we had talked about bringing back the bike patrols. I've already, you know, put that out. We've identified 5 or 6 officers that are interested in being part of that. So it's a matter of purchasing the new equipment, because the stuff that we have is from the late 90s. So we have to make some investments there. But I think something like that, we're going to see as soon as the weather clears, and we actually are going to start seeing that. The CLO, you know, I think we're going to start seeing at least some form of that. What that ultimately takes shape, that sort of thing. The social worker hopefully we'll have somebody on board, on staff, and already working before this year is out. That's my goal. And I think that's the mayor's goal as well. So things like that, I think we're going to see by the end of this year. Some of the other things that are going to be a little more long-term, that maybe have budgetary impact, that's going to be hard to say, but I think that's where we're going to, you know, plan on meeting, whether we establish it at the end of this, or we, you know, obviously we have everybody's communication contact information, whether we decide we're going to get together a year from now. And I provide you with updates on all of the stuff that we've done, kind of where we're at, and, you know, who knows what the world's going to look like a year from now. There might be a whole other set of topics and things that we need to talk about, you know. So we weren't even envisioning this last February. So who knows what next February is going to bring. Hopefully it'll be a little better than 2020, but obviously none of us can predict the future. So I think that's where Councilman Clark talks about it being a living document, that we're going to move forward. And my intent is to try to get all of these things done as expeditiously as possible. But the things that we can't do when we get together, you know, I'll certainly advise you of any potential roadblocks, and, you know, or maybe even sooner, and we just get together and, you know, brainstorm.
Yeah, Linda, I don't anticipate, I mean, one of the things we talked about during this process is that we're going to be doing a pulse check on this document, and that, you know, when we get together again, you know, the chief's going to be able to say, well, this bullet point has been checked off, and give us an update. And then we can come together also and say, all right, well, we need to add these things, or something, or we don't need to add these things. But I think that, you know, having us meet after we've submitted this plan will help move the process along. So, you know, if we want to meet and we can discuss that, after the fact, 6 months, you know, or a year down the road, or every quarter. We need to give the chief and the department opportunity to, move some of these programs along. But I look at this as like, we're not done after this is done. We still got work to do, and along with, in concert with the department. And if there are stumbling blocks, the chief can identify them, and we can address them, whether it be the Board of Public Safety, the Common Council, or this group. So, I'm excited about the fact that we're going to continue to work together after this proposal has been presented to the governor. This is a great group of people here. So, thank you.
Yes, I just have a quick comment. Yeah, I'm extremely excited about this not being a one and done committee, so to speak. And I know we got the governor's office, whoever the governor may be, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that they will somehow stay involved to make sure local agencies are doing what they said they was going to do. So I'm very, very excited about what's happening now, and I look forward to the future. I know whether this committee, the faces may change, but this committee, the faces may change, but this committee will still have input and oversight of the oversight, so to speak. So I'm extremely excited.
Mr. UC, did you have something to say? I'm sorry.
I did. I was following up on the chief's comments on the meeting we had today in restorative practices. One of the common things amongst the Glens Falls Police Reform and the County Sheriff's Police Reform was restorative practices. And, what does that mean? We've been doing that in the juvenile world for a little bit. We're lucky to have some people in our community that are pretty good at it. So what we wanted to do was to expand that from the Sheriff's Department, obviously, and include the Glens Falls Police and everybody in the community. So we're in the process of thinking about how we get the community engaged. How do we do this? How do we start from the bottom up? Because usually in systems, we start training the people from the top up that are doing the work. So what we want to do is tip the system upside down and get the people that are involved and people that aren't involved, just the regular citizens who may have an interest. So that's one of the things we'll be working on. And in today's meeting, we had a lot of involvement, a lot of great ideas. And I think that's something, that's going to play out in the next couple of years. It's a long process, but I think by us all being invested in treating victims differently and looking at how we deal with people in the systems and across the board, it's a community involvement and engagement type thing that we all want to do. So, I think that was something to look forward to as we progress on. And the other thing I'd like to add is I think hiring a social worker with a PD is a great idea. And I think that's going to pay a lot of dividends in many ways. So thank you for everybody to all the work that you've done on this.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions, Peter? You're muted.
You're muted, Pete.
Peter, you're muted. Maybe it sounds off.
There. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hear me now? Paul Hancock writes, has the committee considered for the Police for Tomorrow initiative by Georgetown Law School for DC Metro Police? They hold monthly workshops on topics like race and policy, implicit bias, poverty and crime, impact of gentrification, adolescent brain development, etc. That's his comment and question.
We haven't, and we can certainly take a look at that.
What was that again, Peter? The program that you talked about?
It is
Georgetown.
It's considered the Police for Tomorrow initiative run by Georgetown Law School for DC Metro Police. And he says they hold monthly workshops on topics like race and policy, implicit bias, poverty and crime, impact of gentrification, adolescent brain development, etc.
I will take a look at that. I'm not familiar with that. Just to kind of give you an idea, by accreditation standards, we're required to do 21 hours of training each year, at a minimum per officer. And my intent is, and one of the things I've talked with our training sergeant, and the benefit of having this new training regimen that we just signed up for, is that they do have various topics that we can pick from blocks of topics for various trainings over the course of the year. So it kind of sounded like some of those topics are things that we do get to do monthly trainings on as a part of this. So, but I will have to look at specifically the policing for tomorrow, see what that is.
Also, Chief, there is a question from Diane Collins. Chief, what percentage of police calls are more social work related versus criminal? Will the city social worker have time to handle the mental health related cases?
It's going to depend. It's a very difficult question as far as we do handle a lot of mental health calls. And depending on the nature of those calls, if they're not emergency, it might be something that the social worker can do. The social worker is not necessarily going to be working by themselves. They're also going to be, and that's why we're going to be having a social worker so that they can actually supervise additional casework interns. So they'll be available after hours and on call and that sort of thing. So, and that's where it's going to be up to us to develop the program that kind of fits our needs the best. But certainly non-emergency calls that can be handled by the social worker, the social work intern, and don't require a police response, that would be something that they would potentially be doing.
I also think the idea of the social worker is to connect people to appropriate community resources. So they're not going to be delivering all the services themselves, but really helping people to connect to the county resources and community resources that are already here too.
Pretty much as an advocate.
Which there are many resources. Peter, is there anybody else that's had?
That's all for now.
All right. Anybody else have anything on the committee? Mr. Collins, Councilman Collins, do you have anything?
No, thank you. What great work you've done. Appreciate all your efforts. Chief, you may, and Jim, you may want to consider placing some dates, target dates on some of those things, and then checking them off as you go, even though you know, there's some things that are more long-term and you may not be able to get to them. I think that's fine, but it will help people on the outside looking at the report to feel, every time you have an update on it, you can just update the document and it can be that rolling document you want. It'll help people to feel assured and give you credit also for the projects that are done or where they are. So I know that quite often, when you don't know for sure how things are going to go, that putting dates on things and goals can be a scary thing if it's seen the wrong way, but it doesn't need to be. All right. I think you've made great progress already. And so therefore that target dates wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, we can look at that, Chief, right?
Yes.
Thank you for great work you've done. Appreciate it.
I have another comment from Paul Hancock. I've listened to several hours of the committee's meetings and have not heard much on use of force, wisdom of mugshots in newspapers, and arrests of low-level offenders. Could someone talk about innovative approaches to reducing violence?
Chief.
Well, as far as use of force, if you look at our numbers have dropped drastically over the years. Last year, we had 15 uses of force out of just 800 arrests, I believe it was. And the other thing that we talked about was that what were we using those instances of force on? And I don't have the number right in front of me, but I believe it was about 2/3 of the uses of force that we had were regards to mental health calls. So when you actually look at our criminal arrests, a very, very, very small percentage of our arrests involved our officers actually even having to put hands on people. We haven't had a taser in 2 years, I believe. We haven't had to use OC. Our officers are doing a good job in working with folks to get them into custody without having to use force. And they're going to continue to do that. As far as, what was it? There were 3 parts to the question. Can you repeat the other 2, please?
Actually, he said, I've listened to several hours of the committee's meetings and have not heard much on use of force, wisdom of mugshots in newspapers, and arrests of low-level offenders. Wisdom of mugshots in newspaper, in parentheses, arrests of low-level offenders. And could someone talk about innovative approaches to reducing violence?
Well, as far as mugshots being released to the paper, we haven't been doing that, I want to say, in probably a year. If the governor changed the rule on that, and we just made a decision that we weren't going to be doing that any longer. So we're not doing that. As far as low-level offenses, certainly the drug, substance abuse things, that's one of the things that we're exploring with people that if they're addicted and that sort of thing. That's one of the things we're looking at for the LEAD program as far as substance abuse goes and that sort of thing. So those are certainly things that we're going to be looking to once that program's up and running. Individuals that are amenable to it will be potentially given the opportunity to be diverted from criminal court to being able to get help for their presentations, their either mental health problems or their substance abuse problems.
And Peter, if I could jump in, we also already have some programs in place for those circumstances with low-level offenders in Glens Falls City Court, opioid diversion, drug treatment court, that give people opportunities. These are post-arrest versus pre-arrest diversion, but they're still I consider them diversion programs that basically put people into treatment, give them opportunities to avoid incarceration and sometimes avoid criminal convictions.
Great.
Well, again, we're going to continue to meet after this is done, and our next step is to have the Common Council have a public hearing on March 9th at 7:20, and then at that time, hopefully we'll approve it and send it on to the governor. And I thank Diane and Paul for asking questions and participating in tonight's meeting. And I thank the committee members and Councilman Collins for jumping on. I appreciate all your efforts and working together to make Glens Falls a better place for everybody. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim, for your leadership. You've done a wonderful job, and we appreciate you also.
It's a great group of people, believe me.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Peter, thank you for doing this for us.
Pleasure.
Everyone have a great evening.
So this is it, right? This is our last. This is our
So
last.
we're gonna schedule something in the future, right?
I told you, we're gonna be around, man.
Oh,
You're not
right.
getting out that easy.
Well, our last public forum was what I was thinking. Yeah. Okay.
You guys
bit,
are
right?
more than happy to join us at our council meeting, but we'll get together. Believe me, you're not off the hook yet, Howard.
I have one more comment from Paul Hancock. He wants to thank the committee for all the work that you've undertaken, and he hopes this is a continuing conversation.
Definitely.
Absolutely is. So thank you. All right, Jeff. Everyone, have a great evening.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
God bless.
Be safe out
Good
there.
night, everybody.
Be safe.
Bye.